call this meeting to order. It's good to see everyone here this evening. We've got a full agenda, some important things to talk about, but should go pretty quickly, I think, and smoothly. But we'll get started with opening prayer from Vice Mayor Adam Dixon.
Let us all pray. Dear God, we're just so grateful and thankful unto you. We do praise you, from whom all blessings flow. God, we realize, Lord, that we are not worthy of one of your blessings. We're not worthy of your gratitude. We're not worthy of your mercy or your grace. But God, we're just so thankful. And so, God, we want to exemplify you in the kindness that we show, the graciousness that we show, the mercy that we show unto others, because you have been so kind and merciful and gracious unto us. And so, God, we will forever be grateful and thankful unto you. God, we thank you for this community in which we live. We thank you for the people that comprise this community. And God, we just pray that neighbor can be kind to neighbor. We can love each other as you have loved us. God, we do ask that you bless this meeting, and you bless those of us that comprise this board, and continue to nurture and enrich our desire to serve the people and serve this town. God, continue to bless the town staff. They are true public servants. Continue to bless this community. God, even in these difficult times, Lord God, do pray that you continue to strengthen and bless their path. God, we ask it all, Lord. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Adam. Really, who do you have to lead the place tonight?
Jim Wheeler.
All right, Jim.
If you would salute the flag and the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Ruth. All right, Robert, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Vest.
Here.
Alderman Causey.
Here.
Alderman Cameron.
Here.
Alderman Dixon.
Here.
Alderman Wood.
Kelly had a family vacation scheduled, so that's why he's not here, but hope to have him back here later this month. So we'll move right into our agenda, and first item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Got several things listed in there, some events that we have coming to Jonesborough. The Heritage Alliance has that Taste of Tennessee. That's always a great event. And Constitution Week bell ringing. Got that coming up. And our Washington County, Tennessee Heritage Fair. So looking forward to that. So Alderman, is anything on that consent agenda you want pulled? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Alderman Causey. Got a second from Alderman Dixon. Any discussion? Call the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon. Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Alderman Wood.
Okay, motion carried. We'll move into our regular agenda. First item on that's our financial report. And Robert, you got any comments there? Do things appear to be in order for us this month?
Yes, sir. I do believe so. As we're nearing the end of the year, we're looking good on our revenues, and our collections overall continue to be up. Our local option sales tax continues to improve year over the same period last year, so we're steadily improving.
Very good. I did notice in the sales tax collections, I always like pointing out for March, we brought over $243,000. And one thing I've noticed that really every month this year, it's a record month. So our July was a record month this year, as was August, September, October. So people are really shopping locally well here, and those funds are important. And later on, I'll speak to sales tax and how that impacts Washington County and Jonesborough. So look forward to talking about that a little bit later. Alderman, any questions or comments? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
A motion to approve from Alderman Causey.
Second.
Second from Alderman Countermine. Any discussion? Call the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Motion carried. And we got communications from myself. their Employee of the Month first, because it was such a, I told Mr. Beckett earlier, it's such a good example of what our town does. So I'd like to call Shane Atkins up. To read some good things about you. How you saved our taxpayers some money, so I'll let you know that. But I would like to nominate Fleet Department employee Shane Atkins for Employee of the Month. The Fleet Department is one of the smallest departments in the town of Jonesborough, with only 3 technicians serving 16 departments and over 200 vehicles, and engine-powered equipment on a tight schedule. Police vehicles are replaced every 70 years, which requires new vehicles coming in to be sent to specialized uplifters that install all the equipment and fixtures necessary to create a truly customized cruiser for the police and fire departments. The budget was tight for the new vehicles, and with last-minute increases in prices by the uplifters, equipping all the new vehicles would put the police department over budget on the new units. Matt Rice approached Shane asking if he thought he could do the uplifting for the new police fleet. Shane had been servicing the police units already, but hadn't uplifted a unit yet. He was given 2 units to prepare. Shane researched the necessary details online and through a supplier of uplift equipment, and went to the Washington County Sheriff's Garage to clarify some questions he had about their units. He started slow and spent a few weeks doing the first car. Then the second car went a little bit better. Along the way, he improved the wiring design he was taught and came up with a better way to design the add-on electrical system to support all the equipment to turn an Explorer into a police unit. Shane completed 10 units uplifted, saving $1,500 each, adding up to $15,000 in labor savings. He also saved the department another $16 in shop charges. Both combined over $16,600 saved. Another benefit, he knows everything about uplift personnel and makes him an expert on police and fire units. In order to complete this task, Shane worked overtime without complaint to complete this project on time. After the new units were completed, he has changed 3 police units into fire units. It's a job well done. So we thank you for that. Trial and error. Trial and error. It's, I'm sure everybody appreciates the savings in $16,000. We've probably got an opportunity to talk about that tonight with our budget. That probably saved us $16,000, about 1 penny. The way we look at it now, so we appreciate that. Thank you. Let's get Tom here. Thank you, Shane. Just a couple of quick comments really about your Music on the Square. It's going great out there, so I appreciate the volunteers we've got to put on Music on the Square. Lincoln Park, continues to bless our community. You can go up there day or night, and you see people up there using that park like no other. So, not been up there yet, please make a point to go do that. And we've got a visitor in town. Candace Kane, she's here. She came with, she's making a movie about a little town called Jonesborough. It's called Love in Storytown. And I'm hoping during the citizens' comments she might get up and tell us something about it. But I came down, I guess, from New York and spent some time in Jonesborough yesterday and I think today. And it was great to have them here. So looking forward to hearing more from her. That's really all I got at the moment. Alderman, anything from you?
I'm good.
Let's see, let's go with the citizens' comments. Let's go into that first. All right, if you're a citizen of Jonesborough or one of our water customers, you'd like to get up and address our board, we're here to listen. And then after you speak, we'll have the alderman able to address anything if need be. Anyone here to address the town? Just state your name and address. For the record, please.
Yeah, Ann Mason. I live at 223 Forest View Drive, but of course I'm the executive director of the Heritage Alliance. That's 212 East Saban Drive. But I just wanted to clue you all in on something, an exciting piece of our history that we found again. So from July 17th to August 14th, 1873, which is almost 150 years ago exactly, the cholera epidemic moved through town that summer. And for years and years, it's been one of the most persistent stories of Jonesborough that there was a mass grave. And we've done all kinds of studies up there and didn't find anything, but there's always a kernel of truth in every story. So with the help of Dr. Robert Jones, who has the DeVault Tavern, and he's very well versed in ground penetrating radar. And thanks to the lawn mowing guys and the town staff for beating the wood line back a little, he and Gordon have been working on it for years, didn't come up with anything, but finally in March, they went back up there with his new toys, and back where the wood line had been beat back, found what is very likely, we're probably at 90-95% sure, is the mass grave from the cholera epidemic.
Oh, wow.
It's the right size. It's in there's one newspaper description from the 1970s that says in the bend or trench of the cemetery. It's in the bend or the trench of the cemetery. And we found this picture from the early 1900s. So this here is the Lamson plot. And there's this, kind of hard to see, but there's this like white fence in the back of that picture. And we never really knew what it was, but it pretty much well matches up with where we think the mass grave is. So we think that was the fence around the grave then, and it was just lost to time, and the wood line slowly crept up and covered it up. I have the study that Dr. Jones put together. I'm going to email to you all so you can look it over. The only way to be 100% sure would be to excavate. We don't recommend that, but we're pretty confident with his research that this is what it is. Possibly 15 to 20 individuals buried in there. There's no way to know exactly who it is. We do have the list of most of the people who died that were listed in the newspaper in 1873. So we would like to work with you all to, first of all, put up a temporary marker to those people for the August 12th summer social we're going to have. And then the temporary marker would probably kind of look like the signs we have now at either cemetery, so it matches. And then we want to work with you all for like a more permanent marker that the Heritage Alliance would be happy to fund. They could go up there to commemorate the event, and then, the people who are most likely buried there. So I just wanted to let you all know that we learned something new, and we're going to be sending out a more official press release for the media and stuff. But we wanted you all to know that the spirits were talking to us, and it's important to keep that wood line mowed back, because that's 100% how we found it, was because it had been beaten back. So, all right. So, yeah, if y'all have any questions after I send out the study, let us know.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
That's amazing.
Anyone else? Allison?
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Hi, good evening. My name is Allison Wilkinson, and my Jonesborough address is 107 Sevier Avenue. But I'm here this evening as the regent for Jonesborough State of Franklin DAR chapter. You've been so indulgent to hear from me for several months in a row. But Flag Day is here, and remember that June 14th is always Flag Day, but we don't usually have it as a state or a national holiday. And it is commemorating the 1777 Continental Congress approval of a national flag. And so we will be having our second annual Flag Day event here at Town Hall. Ruth Verhage, of course, the chair of the town's flag committee, is in charge of that. But it is with the State of Franklin DAR chapter. DAR's mission is historic preservation, education, and patriotism, which includes the service of revolutionary patriots in whose footsteps all of our veterans continue to march. So we have a really exciting program. What we're continuing to do is ask what the flag means to you. And so that is going to be our program again. We do have, I think the Mayor Vest will be there as part of our ceremonies. I'd also like to share with you a little sneak peek that we have the 50th anniversary of the Tennessee State poem, which is "Oh Tennessee, My Tennessee," which was written by a prisoner of war while he was captive in Vietnam Vietnam, Naval Admiral William Lawrence wrote the poem by memory during days of solitary captivity. And then when he returned in 1973, I think it was the legislature named it the state poem. So there were 5 stanzas. We have 5 fabulous Jonesborough people who will be reading one stanza after the other, and it's a kickoff to our State Regents project to bring this into our Jonesborough schools. And so that's something we'll be working on over the next few years. So we hope that it's a good opportunity to remind everyone, and I know with Alderman Dixon's prayer this evening, we're all reminded how grateful we are to be in a place like this. And you can just imagine being locked in solitary darkness with not knowing the day or night, and the only thing to keep your sanity was remembrance of the place that you called home, and creating this poem, and it's the 50th anniversary. So we'll be doing that with Miss Washington County, Miss Johnson City, the reigning moon pie eating champion will be there with one of the stanzas. We've also got a great Beta Club member, a gentleman who's a junior over at ETSU will be doing a stanza, and then we have a retired United States Army veteran who's also a DAR member. So I'm just telling you that because I think it would be a great opportunity. It's at lunchtime, it's at noon, and so we would love to see you there. We will not take a lot of your time. So I've brought a few little flyers. We would love to see the community there, and if you have any questions, let me know. I'll just leave them here if that's appropriate.
Is it going to be right up front?
Yes, sir. It'll be on the, somebody help me, the
Flagpole here at Town Hall.
yes, not the one by the post office, which is where I went last year. So it's the other one over there. And Rebecca Alexander will be sending her greetings. She had another commitment. So I think it'll be a really fun afternoon. So is it all right with you, to the board, that I leave these here?
Sure.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is anyone else? If not, Candace, you want to come up and tell us about your project?
Am I allowed to face that way?
Yeah, you can do it. Yes.
People this way.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Candace Kane. Yes, I go by Candy Kane. I make Christmas movies, so not, Candy Kane could be another kind of movie, but I do wholesome, faith-based, faith-friendly, conservative-leaning films. My husband is a police officer, and I'm from New York, Long Island. So I have 15-year-old twins now. And since 2015, I've made 15 films. 15 is a big number right now. So I've made 15 films, 3 television series, one of which has 2 seasons. I don't know if any of you subscribe to PureFlix, but my television show, Welcome to Hope, we're currently in contention for the Emmys, and it is the first faith-based show from PureFlix. So it's really cool. It's a female film company. I'm the president, and I'm also the director-producer on this film called Love in Storytown. Betty and Mike, Betty Sullivan is the writer, Mike Masalam is the director of photography, and they're actually doing what's called B-roll right now. So we are here filming exterior shots of Jonesborough, because while we're going to establish it, the story takes place in Jonesborough, we're filming it in New York on Long Island because we're working with the union. We have 4 people cast right now. Alicia Minshew, William Ragsdale, if any of you remember Herman's Head. He was Herman on Herman's Head. Mario Silva and Kenny Myers are all in the film right now, and we're waiting for people that accepted offers that are going to come back as leads and so forth. So, while we're here, we're offering business owners the opportunity to do what's called brand integration. Tomorrow we are filming right in front of McLeod Organics and integrating them into the film. So it's going to be at 8:30. You can come by and watch if you'd like, but everything's worked out with Thomas over there. So if you're interested in something like that, you can either reach out to me, Cameo, or Mayor Vest there. The story, just so you have an idea, it's not a documentary, it's a Hallmark-style romantic comedy. It is about an Army major named Mandy Johnson who decides, she's also a widow, she decides that she's going to leave the military with her 10-year-old son and move to Jonesborough, where her mother has a bed and breakfast. and she's going to come here, and she opens up a bakery, which she's always wanted to do, which eventually gets called Caleb's Corner, and she falls in love with a friend that she used to spend her summers here, and so did he, and now he's a traveling storyteller. So they end up falling in love, and we'll find out what happens next. We anticipate it being released in the spring of next year. So if anybody has any questions, you are welcome to ask me. If you want to, I'll be available after. I have my, they have my business cards. I might have a couple business cards with me. But, my company is called Gemelli Films. You can go online. It's GEMELLI film, FILM.com. Gemelli means twins in Italian. So, and that's it.
All right,
So thank you for your hospitality.
You're welcome. Appreciate you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm late.
That's okay, Dana.
Dana Helvey, 100 East Woodrow. I actually just wanted to listen to Candy's thing. I had to hear that first. A friend called me and directed me the other day to go take a drive, and I have to admit that it just didn't really make my day. There was a for sale sign that was in front of the Herald and Tribune, and I'd seen some changes in the paper, and then I was aware of ownership changes and things like that. And it was sort of interesting. We just heard about the cholera epidemic, and of course the gentleman that owned the house that I live in was a key player in that and trying to help people. The first report was in 1873. That was in the paper. The paper started in 1869, and I guess there's always change. There's change all the time. Change is inevitable, and you have change that some people just fight, and they just because they just don't like change. Another change you look at and you go, no, this is important change. This is our voice, and it is a private enterprise, the paper, but it really belongs to this community. Indeed, it was one of the 13 parameters that Kim and I looked at when we decided to pick Jonesborough as our new home from Colorado, was the strength of diversity of opinion that was presented in the local newspaper. One side, this side. How did they talk about their past? How did they talk about their little kids in elementary school? What do they value? What was the reflection of the community? Or was it a homogeneous blend, like the papers we got used to, that slowly got gobbled up? There's been a lot of change around here. Businesses have burnt down, businesses have moved, businesses have made smaller, some businesses have dropped their hours, others have tried to start anew, and are working towards that. I just want to put that little thing out there, that little warning, that little caution light that starts flashing. Big change never happens suddenly. It happens one little bite at a time. I'm concerned. I don't want to lose Serena's reporting. I don't want to lose the individual aspect of Jonesborough. The things that make us special are sometimes not really newsworthy, except if you live here. Thank you.
Very true. Thanks, Dana. All right, anyone else? All right, thank you. We can move into Alderman communications now. Alderman, anything you want to share with the town? Yeah? Good. I'm going to back up a second for my comments. I was thinking so much about all the great events and festivals that we had. I just noticed we've got a beer board meeting at the end of this meeting, and I was reading some write-ups about a new little restaurant that's going to open on Fox Street, Possum's Tail, I think it's called, and they had initially applied for a license, and I think they were missing some things, so they had to drop it. And this made me think about some things that we've got here in Jonesborough, and I want to see if we can ask our staff to look at our current overlay zone that we have in Glen that mostly applies, I think, to Depot Street and Fox Street there. Evaluate that if we're handling the definition of beer correctly to address any changes in the state ordinances there, or do we need to develop a new overlay zone that addresses that issue? And I'd like to see if we have a updated overlay zone or develop a new one, if it also could include the potential for serving. I think that's something we should study and discuss. And also, just along that same line, I think it's certainly will have staff update our current beer ordinance to reflect the recent past changes in the state dealing with beer. I think I'm not that knowledgeable about beer, and most of our ordinances in the state always in the past addressed beer that's under 5% alcohol, and now with the changes in the industry, a lot of alcohol or what we know as beer is greater than 5%. So some of our ordinances need to be updated. So if you guys will look at that and get back with our board, I'd appreciate it. Didn't address that during my comments. I hope you got that. And now got town attorney comments. Jim?
Mayor, no report this evening. We may need to go into executive session a little later.
Can we go in executive session now for about 5 minutes?
We can, yes, sir.
I'll step back there. If you all will bear with us for about 5 minutes, we'll go back and discuss a few things. Right back out. we're back. Appreciate your patience there. We're going to continue moving on through our agendas. Next up is our new business. First item on our agenda is discussion and possible action concerning approval to construct a new building to replace the building destroyed by the storm. So Alderman, you see a pretty good write-up there, and of course the insurance is going to pay for, unfortunately not all of the replacing the building, but a good part of it, but we're going to have to come up with the funds to replace the rest of the building there. I think Craig wrote up a good recap of our options there. Glenn, anything you want to speak to there, or?
No, I think it's a great plan. I mean, you hate to see something destroyed, so there was, made us pivot, but I think with Craig's investigations and planning and looking at both street department, parks, and then also solid waste, I think the plan presented, of course we'll have to go to bid, but the plan presented to do both buildings, one to construct and one to basically retrofit or skin, I think is our biggest bang for our buck, and we'll have two good facilities.
Yeah. It'd be too costly to build one back as big as the one that got destroyed. So we're going to go with the two building option. Sounds good, but our what are we, $77,000 short from what the insurance is paying to complete that, you think?
I hope we can come in under that, but you don't ever want to be so conservative. I don't like trying to do cost estimates that come in over budget instead of under budget. So hopefully we can do it for a little less.
Okay, sounds good. Alderman, any questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve from Alderman Countermine. Second from Alderman Dixon. Any discussion? Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Motion carried. Next item on our agenda is discussion and possible action concerning the Jackson Theater project. Just kind of wanting to get started on a little bit of work in there with, I guess, our sound systems and all of those type things. Alderman, you see the recommendation there. Any questions or comments about that? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Alderman Countermine.
I'll second.
Second from Alderman Dixon. Any discussion? Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
All right, motion carried. And I will say we've had, I guess, 3 work sessions where we discussed all things budgets and all things Jackson Theater, because that's an important project for our town. So, one, I want to take an opportunity now to thank Glenn and Craig and Robert for really just great prep work and having the information that the alderman needed. And it's allowed us to make some heavy decisions, I think. All right, next item on our agenda is discussion and possible action concerning first reading of a fiscal year 2022-23 budget amendments for the general and drug funds. That's just correcting a few little things before we get to the end of the year. Our year ends end of this month. Alderman, any questions or comments there? Jim, is anything I need to read on that?
Just the caption of the ordinance.
An ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget for the general and drug funds. Alderman, I'll take a motion. Motion to approve from Alderman Causey.
Second.
Second from Alderman Countermine. Any discussion? Vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. All right, next item on our agenda. This is kind of a heavy one. We have some big discussions on this. This is discussion and possible action concerning first reading, we've got to do 2, of an ordinance of the Town of Jonesborough, Tennessee, adopting the annual general fund, solid waste fund, and drug fund budgets, setting the property tax rate for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, and ending next year, June 30th, 2024. And I've been on this board a long time, and we've had maybe 1 or 2 increases over the 18 years we've been on here. And I think the one opportunity I had to vote on one in the past, I voted no, because I felt like we could scramble and come up with the funds. And so it's not anything that I take lightly, but a little bit different situation today. So I just want to take an opportunity just to say a few things. One, our general fund budget is a little over $12 million. And the property tax that we collect here in Jonesborough really only covers $2 million of that, slightly more. But $2 million of property tax for a $12.4 million budget. I think that's illustrated over the many years how efficient and cost conscious, the town has been over many years, and using our own labor when we can, and prison labor, and that's why we've built a pretty special place here, really on a shoestring budget. So that property tax really only covers about 15% of what's needed to provide the services to our town and at the level our town desires. This year our town finds us needing about $500,000 in additional revenue, and as Robert would say, it's this year's a little bit different. It's got to come from local funds. It's not borrowing from somewhere else. It's going to be using more local funds, and that's where we find ourselves today. And with this property taxes and the increases and things like that, there's projects we have to get done in Jonesborough. A lot of us just repairing things. You got to fix your streets. You got to fix the sidewalks and all of those things, and it doesn't take long, as we saw here recently when we finished the sidewalks up West Main Street. We had some bids come back on that one little sidewalk, come back at first like $400,000, and we there's no way for one sidewalk. And thanks to the work with Craig and our staff, we got it beat down to, I think, to about $200,000. But that's for what's that?
Little under.
Little under $200,000, and I don't think that takes into account our own labor that we put into it too. So that's things we do to kind of create and finish these projects. But one sidewalk, $200,000, and based on what 1 penny of property tax is worth, it's worth $20,000. It really takes about 10 cents of property tax to fix that one sidewalk. So now we're looking at $500,000, and we've got other sidewalks in town that have deteriorated and they need replaced. They've been here for 60, 70 years, and they're safety hazards, and some of them are so old you can't even hardly see them. They're almost under the grass now, and those projects are going to cost well over $100,000. We're needing to widen and pave North Cherokee. Going out to the new school site. That road needs to be, it's been too narrow. It needs to be widened and paved. That doesn't come cheaply. Depot Street Park, little community park right there. It needs updates. That's $30,000. That's a penny and a half right there. I'll probably get more complaints out of people driving down Boone Street here and hitting the thump, 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 thump. And we need to fix that Boone Street. And there's more than just paving, and I think Craig's got hopefully a solution that's going to eliminate the thump, 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 which is basically concrete underneath our asphalt from decades ago, and that little thump is everywhere they had a groove in the concrete. So when that falls, when it gets paved over, it's good for a few weeks, and then it collapses right where that joint is. So Craig's hopefully going to come up with a solution on that. We won't have the thumps. But that's a $135,000 project to just pave and fix Boone Street. We've got a pump room renovations down at Wetlands. Wetlands has been a great source for our a fund for our community for many, many years, and many years it's profitable. Sometimes the weather's not so good, it might break even, but you got to keep investing in that. And just to replace those pumps and stuff in that pump room, it's $120,000, and you got to take care of what you own. And so we find ourselves with that. I didn't know. We didn't have a whole lot of snow this last time, but we're weak on snow plows. We don't have one, so if we got a big snow, we'd be in a world of hurt. I think Craig and them are kind of innovative, and they figure out how to shovel some snow anyway. But we need 3 snow plows just in case we're due for another good snow. $150,000 for three snow plows. So this is all things that we have to do to maintain our town. So I don't envy the position that our alderman would put in. All of us up here worked as volunteers. We're all taxpayers just like everybody else. And I think some of the numbers that we talked about and you've seen reported, 25 cents, 25 cents times this $20,000, that's where you come up with the $500,000 to do these projects and cover our little bit of shortfall. I go back to looking at 2011, our tax rate was $1.28, And now we're looking at $1.45, and it's going to be at $1.45 still the lowest in the area. You're going to have Irwin at $1.53 unless they increase theirs too. Elizabethton just went to $1.65. Johnson City's right at $2. Bristol's right at $2. Kingsport's right at $2. So they're all staying together. Greenville at $2.46. So for us at $1.45, I think it tells us for so many years how effective we've been spending the money. And we're still a small town, less than 6,000 people, and we depend on a lot of ways to get revenue. Very creative. We talked about sales tax earlier, on how well sales taxes benefited the town of Jonesborough the last few years. I'm in retail. I'm a little bit nervous about how sales tax is going to be going forward, but you do see with with our government raising our interest rates purposely to slow down the economy and get control of inflation, you're going to see the economy slow down. Is that going to mean less sales tax collections? I'm a little bit nervous about that. But we should finish this year, which is 2022, to the end of this month. I estimate we're going to finish at about $2.8 million in sales tax collections. That's a record for the Jonesborough. And it's, if we got to keep all that, we wouldn't be here talking about 25 cents, trust me. But of that 2.8 million, people don't realize half of that we have to give away, because it's mandated by law. We give half of that to the county for the school system. So the county's going to get 1.4 million of the 2.8 we get. And of that 1.4 they get, they've got to share 700,000 roughly with the city of Johnson City. So every year we've got money going into the school systems. We got money going into the school system in Johnson City. People don't know that. So that's just another example of really the situation we find ourselves in. We've got a very successful town financially in great shape. I think we was talking about during our budget meeting about trying to get a loan, and if you were a struggling town, you could get a better interest rate. Well, unfortunately, we're not a struggling town, and we couldn't get the lowest interest rate. We still get a good one. But, you know, we're faced with, we got to keep maintaining our town, and we're fixing the sidewalk, you know, down beside the storytelling center. We got the beautiful brick sidewalk that's falling apart because the river birch trees' roots are getting into the bricks and destroying it. That's going to be a $25,000 project they're working on right now, and you know, we'll get rid of those trees and do something that's more appropriate around brick that looks just as good. But that's the situation we find ourselves in, and I appreciate the alderman, you know, attending these meetings. It's not fun when you talk about raising taxes. Like, I've been anti that forever. But if we want to maintain our police force, people move here because it's safe. We're patriotic, but we're safe because we invest $2 million in public safety. Property taxes are right about $2 million. You could say that property tax pays for our police. If you don't feel safe, I don't care how pretty your town is, you're not going to enjoy it as much. So we've got to have a strong public safety. This 25-cent increase for a home that's, you know, $200,000 is going to cost that homeowner roughly $10 more a month. So to think what we can provide in our fire department, because it's got a really good fire rating of a 5 on the way they rate that. Homeowners in Jonesborough get reduced tax rates, and I think MTAS, when they rated that, they figure that a homeowner of a $100,000 home, if they have a fire department with a 5 rating, that homeowner is going to save over a period of a year almost $300 off of their homeowner's insurance. That's for a $100,000 home, so you can almost double that for a more expensive home. So in many ways, what we're paying in property taxes is almost rebated back to us through savings in our homeowners insurance. So that's why we got to make sure we're still funding our police department. We got to make sure we're still funding our fire department, because those things benefit us in many, many ways. So with that said, I'll move into this next item here. Alderman, you've been privy to the discussion, so what's your pleasure here? I'll go ahead and read the ordinance again. An ordinance of the town of Jonesborough, Tennessee, adopting the annual general fund, solid waste fund, and drug fund budgets, and setting the property tax rate for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, ending June 30th, 2024. Jim, is that appropriate there?
Yes, sir.
if there's anything you remember out of that, just remember, we collect $2.8 million in sales tax, and we have to give half of it away. And it does, when people say Jonesborough doesn't have a school system, well, we're funding school systems, and we might not have one, but we do have a new one going out here now. Not really going, it's not costing us anything. The county's reimbursing us for that, but we'll benefit once we start taking care of the recreational side out there. The county will be paying us for that, so I think years going forward, that's going to be a blessing for the town. Virginia, you got any questions or comments down there?
No, sir. You're good to go.
Jim? Okay. Glenn, you
I just, not to correct the number, but hopefully the cameras are not on me. So our local option sales tax approximately will be 2.8 million this fiscal year. The 2.8 is half of the total, which is basically 5.6 million. Out of that 5.6 million that we earn in local option sales tax, half of that goes to the education system. So we're actually contributing 2.8 million.
Okay.
So we receive 2.8, but that's all we see, but it's actually twice that, and we see half of that, which is 2.8.
Is that right?
So I've increased us twice.
There you go. That's even worse than I thought.
And
Oh, sorry.
yes,
Go ahead.
please,
You go
please.
ahead.
No, I would appreciate it if you would. Yes.
Yeah, as far as on the utility
Yes,
side?
sir.
Yeah. So looking at different organizations, I want to say UETHRA, Upper East Tennessee Human Resource Agency. So trying to work with organizations like that if it comes to the point, which we do right now. We have an agreement with them for folks who are having a hard time paying their utility bill or late on a utility bill or something's going on. There is a partnership that the board had approved a few months ago with them, and we'll continue to look at other organizations that if folks are struggling in any way in that side of things, not similar to property tax relief, which it's a different mechanism, but that's in place for property tax folks. So I just wanted to repeat that from work sessions, that's another organizational partnership that we have.
Yeah, one thing about property tax, I do think there's a program out there through the county clerk's office to where I think that an elderly person making under $31,000, they can go in there and apply and basically have their property tax waived at a certain level. So if anybody anybody might be impacted by that, make sure they are taking advantage of that program. That's something the state and the county put on. All right, Alderman, what's your pleasure there? You see the recommendation.
Move to approve ordinance B 2301.
All right, got a motion to approve from Alderman Countermine.
Mayor, I'll second.
A second from Alderman Dixon. All right, any other discussion? All right, call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Alderman Collins.
Motion carried. Now we'll move into the next item is discussion and possible action concerning first reading of an ordinance establishing garbage and refuse collection fees. Alderman, you can see the recommendation there. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll take a motion. Well, Glenn, is that something you want to speak to?
So the solid waste is one of those departments that are similar to everything else that since the pandemic that everything has gone up, not just materials or we faced one of the big things that we did last year was highly considered, probably maybe at the forefront was from the pandemic, the the level of retention and recruitment that we faced. So in saying that, we just looked at where our garbage collection was, our recycling program. Very unique still, I think, for a town to continue with curbside recycling. That's not to say that we're doing away with it, but again, it's more of a rarity today than it has been in the past. Places are looking at more regional approaches to kind of hubs for collection, but we're still doing that. One thing about our garbage collection is also just to let everybody know, which they probably already know, it also includes not only the trash pickup, but junk pickup, leaf pickup, brush pickup. And I'm not comparing us to others, but we don't have other than leaves, that's the only seasonal approach to collections that we have. But if you're someone that is chopping away at your trees every other week and you put it out at the road, we're going to pick it up. If you've got junk pickup, then you can call in and have that removed. A lot of places have stopped that. Basically you just take it to the Iris Glen or another dump yourself. So this also positions us with our growth to look at the demand from the more homes that we have coming in, the more businesses that we have coming in. So this helps us leverage a whole lot more this year. It also, looking at the future, also leverages funds for the year based on all things going well. It also leverages to where we invest in ourselves for when we do need a new fire truck, new garbage truck, or even recycling, that we're investing in putting money into reserves for the future, so that we don't come up 3-4 years down the road and we don't have a source other than looking for other revenue sources. So Robert did a great job at analyzing it. We've done it each year since I've been here, and so did a great job of packaging up for us and in work sessions.
Thank you, Glenn. What's a new garbage truck going to cost us if we have to?
I think
like $400,000.
I'd say so. I maybe even, I don't want to say worse, maybe even higher. Back in the day, it was probably $350, $400,
yeah,
probably $5 now, depending.
Yeah.
But now that we're Shane.
Exactly.
We have Shane to build this one for about $100,000. Just kidding. But I hate to joke during this time, but you mentioned level of service and the quality of the workers we have and the leveraging of our force to save money. It's invaluable. There's not really a rhyme or reason to say how much money we save by having such wonderful staff. So keeping them retention and recruiting fine folks is important too. But all costs are going up. Trash, 8-yard bin was probably $800 a couple of years ago. Now it's $1,200 or $1,300. Things aren't going up just 20%. They're going up 50%, 100%, 200%.
And we got, with more homes and more apartments and all those, it's just more pickups, and that's when you can't do it with one truck. So at some point, we're going to need that second truck on the road. So that's just the nature of it.
Just to clarify that the garbage rates will not be paying for a fire truck. Yeah. Slipped up on that one.
All right, any discussion? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Alderman Causey.
Second.
Second from Alderman Countermine. Any discussion? Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Counterman.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. All right, last item on our agenda before we move into our beer board. It's a discussion and possible action concerning the first reading of an ordinance establishing water and sewer rates for fiscal year 2023-24. And again, that's another one of those areas where we got to start thinking about the future. We found out back in December, if you got some weak spots out there, Mother Nature will find them. And we've got a plant that's, from the 1970s, and it's served us well, but it needs to be. We got a greater population now, more challenges, and we need to make plans now for a new plant, water plant, I think you've probably heard about that during December. It's something we've already been studying and engineering. It's going to be about a $35 million building. So we got to start putting a little bit of money aside to be able to handle that when the time comes. And we've got to be able to supply water to people consistently. So it's where we find ourselves with our water rates. Alderman, you got any questions or anything on that? Or Glenn, you got anything you want to add?
Mayor?
Yes.
Well, Glenn, do you have anything?
I'll stay quiet.
Okay. I just want to say, Mayor, I really appreciate the way you've articulated everything this evening. I think that as a board member, I think you did an outstanding job in conveying to the public the situation. And I think that the public understands that these are strategic investments in your community, and for the upbuilding and the future growth of the community. These investments that were made, say in the 80s and the 90s, have brought us to where we are today, and we've seen population growth, and we see a community that we all love. And I think that now we want to make these strategic investments for the next 30, 40, 50 years. So I just really appreciate the way you've articulated everything, and I appreciate your leadership in the matter.
Thank you.
And yes, thank you much.
Is that a motion to approve? Glenn?
If he wants to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I don't want to interrupt. I was just going to say, as far as if you're looking at all the different departments on the utilities side, I would say inflationary cost, materials, whether or not it's a new pipe or chemicals. Chemicals have gone up anywhere probably the 100, 200, 300%, somewhat. Today, if you order pipe, whatever that price is, it's a quote, and you're basically going to pay as they deliver it. They'll say, here's your charge. It's made it very difficult in the world of the utilities, but our big plan is to not only look at expanding so that we're in a great position for 30, 40 years into the future, but also taking care of the older lines that need to be replaced, and transmission lines, new plant. There's a lot of bells and whistles, but a lot of it honestly is materials, just inflation. Probably the largest increases just based on what we need to operate utilities.
And a lot of those, plans for the utilities on the water side, they're underway right now. We're improving, water lines as we speak, and replacing meters, and all that's kind of the first phase of, I guess, a 3 or 4 phase plan. And that's all for the future. All right, Alderman, if you got any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve.
Motion to approve from Alderman Dixon.
Second.
Now, second from Alderman Countermine. Any other discussion? Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Alderman Counterman.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Appreciate that, Alderman. And that meeting's adjourned.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would suggest that you recess, and given what may be presented at the beer board meeting, in the event that you needed to take some BMA action, if you chose to do some of what's being proposed, it would help if you just recessed, and
Okay.
that way you could come back in as a Board of Mayor and Alderman if you needed to follow up with some of the requests. So
Okay.
I would recommend you just recess for now, and then you can adjourn it after the beer board meeting.
Okay, we're going to recess. That does not mean we're going to run outside and play now, but we're going to sit right here and move right into the beer board. Is that right, Jim?
Yes, sir.
All right. And first item on that agenda is Tennessee Hills Distillery. It's an application for on-premises beer license at 127 Fox Street in Jonesborough. I think we got a gentleman here to speak to that. Mayor, state your name and for the record.
Mayor and Alderman, my name is Clark Jordan. I'm the Chief Legal Officer for Rugged American Spirits, which is the owner of Tennessee Hills Distillery. So I wanted to share a little background, since it's probably the first time we've had an opportunity to get to know each other a little bit. I spent 8 years as a nuclear submarine officer, and after that attended law school, have been a partner in one of the largest law firms in the United States. And until just recently, I was the Vice President of Legal and Corporate Secretary for Eastman Chemical Company, which is a company I think you're all familiar with.
Yep.
And at one time, I served as Eastman's Chief Legal Officer as well. So I've had the fun of being with Tennessee Hills and Rugged American Spirits and seeing what those rugged entrepreneurs are up to and trying to do in the community, both with East Tennessee State University and trying to solve some of the tax issues that we have here in Jonesborough to drive more revenue to the city in what I think would be a win-win way. So if you don't mind, Mayor, as chairman, I'd like to take the second item first and then come back to the first item.
Absolutely, that's fine.
Thank you. So one of the things that we'd like to do here at Tennessee Hills is we would like to begin manufacturing craft beer. So we currently are distilling spirits at Tennessee Hills. Adding a craft brewery will enhance our interactions with East Tennessee State University and their brewing and spirits majors now. We'll be bringing students over here to work in our small-scale distillery. We'd like to be able to have them be able to do that also in a small-scale brewery, which will really focus on the craft of brewing. It's not really intended to be larger scale. Our larger scale brewery is located in Johnson City, and we are building the fourth largest distillery in the state of Tennessee in Bristol. So we're making tremendous investments in this region, and this is another element of that holistic picture of what we're trying to do with truly the craft spirits and brewing industry, which is a big part of the heritage of not only East Tennessee, but Jonesborough. One of the things I've done a lot of research on recently is looking at Jonesborough, and if you look back in the history in 1810, there were 500 residents of Jonesborough. There were 4 taverns. If I do my math right, that's 1 tavern for every 125 people. If we were to scale that up to today, there would be 44 taverns in town. But that's not quite where we are. These were rugged people coming across the mountain who were settling in Jonesborough, and really appreciate their spirit and what they've all done for the region. So as we met with Mr. Rosenoff and Mr. Wheeler to discuss our desire, well, one, we were talking about outdoor permits, but at the same time, we shared with them our desire to start manufacturing, having a tasting room, being able to distribute, which in Tennessee, you can distribute among yourself, so our Jonesborough facility could distribute within the county, as could the Jonesborough facility. And then for some off-site sales, so it would be very small, like a growler or something like that, that someone could take away. So we discussed that, and recently, just a couple of days ago, we received a letter from Mr. Rosenoff, and I wanted to address what was raised as the concern in the letter so that we're clear. So this was 7 days ago that we got this letter, but we've done quite a bit of research. So the objection that was raised to our ability to manufacture in Jonesborough was a zoning one. And so we looked at that, and the basis for that was that there was no zoning appropriate that was in for our Tennessee Hills distillery area, and that it was, even though we have a distillery zoning district, that the zoning had to be for beer, and beer could only be manufactured in a manufacturing zone. And I will say respectfully, that's not correct. That's not what the distillery zoning provision actually provides. If you would like, I'm happy to share a copy of that zoning provision with you so you can follow along if you find that would be helpful.
Do you have a copy for each?
I do have a copy
Okay,
for
let's
each.
do that. And hand it there to Craig, and he'll get it to us.
So there are 2 pages each. So as you'll see, the distilling company overlay district, of which Tennessee Hills resides within, are permitted to make various types of spirits. And among those, if you look in section 1 of 11-5118D, it says these facilities are defined as follows. A facility that manufactures intoxicating liquors includes alcohol, spirits, liquors, wines, and every liquid or solid, patented or not, containing alcohol, spirits, liquor, and wine, and capable of being consumed by humans, but nothing in this section shall be construed or defined as including or relating to the manufacture of any beverage with an alcohol content of 5% or less. So I will share with you all that Tennessee Hills has absolutely no intent of ever making any beverage of less than 5% alcohol. Never, ever. And the difference is in craft brewing, in mass marketed beer, like a light beer or a Budweiser, the alcohol contents of those beers are 4.2 and 5% or less. So those would be inappropriate in this distilling company overlay district as this is written. Now, but for our beers, which are over 5%, the state allows beer to be between 5 and 8% content. That's the craft beers that we make. There's also something that's called a heavy gravity beer, which is between 8% and 10.1% alcohol by volume, that is also permitted, and we intend to brew that, but that's something that's regulated by the state. Over 8% is not regulated. Under 8% is something that the municipality has a right to create ordinances for. So after we had shared that, one of the other concerns that I heard was, hey, look, this has still got to be in a manufacturing zone. And so I would draw your attention to the second page at number 4. And it says the underlying properties of the overlay zone will normally be a business or a manufacturing zone. So Tennessee Hills is currently zoned B2, which is a business zone. So if you've heard, and what was relayed in the letter, that we had to be in a manufacturing zone, is again contrary to what the actual distilling company overlay says. Moving on beyond that, we were recently told that we would have to get historic zoning approval, which again is wrong. The overlay, if you look at number 5, it says that the DC overlay can be within a historic district. So the zoning ordinance already contemplates that it's within a zoning ordinance. Within a historic district. So if you go beyond that and look at the remainder of what's in this historic zoning ordinance, or the distilling zone, we've already done all of these. When Tennessee Hills was established as a distillery, we have met all the state and federal requirements. You'll see even in B that it specifically mentions B2, which is where we're located. And then we've already provided to the city previously adequate parking, all of these things that are necessary to participate within the distilling company overlay district. So as long as we manufacture beers or any beverage that's over 5%, whether by brewing, distilling, fermenting, whatever the case may be, we are fully compliant with distilling company overlay district. And I would also tell you that if you look at H1, which is the historic district, the historic district encourages companies that are providing some sort of a craft event, some opportunity for the public to use a pedestrian traffic and come in and look at what is going on. So this is what ETSU will be doing. We will be providing an opportunity for both guests who are within the Jonesborough district, and then also bringing ETSU students and their families to work so people can actually learn, and I think it actually fosters what is intended in H1. So So the idea that we got in this letter that somehow we're not compliant with a zoning ordinance is just incorrect, and it is contrary to exactly what the language is that I just went through with you. So setting that aside, we would say, yes, we do want to go ahead and move forward with manufacturing. We want to move forward with the tasting room, which is provided for under Jonesborough's ordinance, and we do with the off-premise sales and distilling. Now, we've recently had a conversation in which the question of manufacturing has come up once again. And I will say, there's an issue with Jonesborough's city ordinances. One, it doesn't have a provision for manufacturing in it. So it's not quite clear to me, but the Jonesborough Beer Board has already set a precedent by approving the depot brewing for brewing beers in Jonesborough, and manufacturing beers in Jonesborough. So the argument that I've recently heard that we don't have a manufacturing ordinance really falls flat when you look at what the prior precedence is that this beer board has taken. And I've also heard the argument that, well, what you're going to make is over 5%, so we don't have that right to now do anything over 5%. And again, I would point to Depot Brewing, which clearly brews beers that are over 5%. And the city has never done anything. They've authorized that to occur and to continue to occur. So all we're really asking for is nothing different. We're saying, hey, we want to be treated just like an established business in town, which is Depot Brewing. We'd like to be able to brew craft-style beers. We'd like to be able to have a tasting room, which they do. They have absolutely no food sales, so we don't want to be treated any differently than them. And we want to be able to move forward. Now, this is, I know, something that was newly asked for, but there's no time limit. It's on the agenda. I think it can be approved, and we would ask that it would be approved. So to the extent that Jonesborough thinks that it does not have approval for manufacturing, then that reverts to the state, because what the state actually says is that the cities are authorized to enact ordinances that cover manufacturing. If the city failed to do that, and if that's the reason we're, might be told no, I would say, well, that reverts to the state. And I would share with you that the state in license number SUPMFR-WAS 1832054 has already approved Tennessee Hills for brewing as part of its approval for our distillation. So I'm really at a little bit of loss from all of the things that we hear from the city, because it feels like we're playing regulatory whack-a-mole, which is once we try to address one issue, another one is brought to our attention. So I would offer to you that Tennessee Hills should be entitled to manufacture, that the beer board, if it wants to approve that, that would be great. If it doesn't want to approve that, then I would say we're going to go forward under the state approval that we have. If Mr. Wheeler is right, and there is no provision, even though this board has exercised that provision. So I think there's a bit of a quandary for the city, and for what is it really going to do? Is it going to treat Tennessee Hills any differently than it treated Depot Brewing? And I would suggest to you the answer should be no. So with that, I'll pause with that discussion, and I will answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just got one quick question. Just where did you point out that tasting's allowed in there? I know the manufacturing side, but where's that at? The tasting?
Tasting is allowed under manufacturing room permit is 225. Manufacturer's tasting room permit. Okay. That is a Jonesborough ordinance which says that a manufacturer's tasting room permit may be issued to a holder of a manufacturing permit under this chapter who produces 100 barrels annually.
Okay.
So we will be establishing a capability to brew between 1 and 5 barrels, which is the size of it. So over the course of a year, we will be brewing over 100 barrels.
Okay. Okay. Jim, you got anything?
I think you ought to take up the other issue, and then I'll have some questions before we go to executive session.
The number A?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you want to cover A now?
Sure. Under A, I think there's a problem again with Jonesboro statutes, Jonesboro ordinances. The problem is, and I made a visual. You ask, what is beer? Okay, so where Jonesboro says beer is between 0 and 5%. That's what Jonesboro says it regulates, is that between 0 and 5%. The state says that beer is really 8%, so up to 8%. And somewhere between 8% and 10.1% is what the state claims exclusive authority for. So we're in this zone between 5 and 8%. So for an on-premise authorization, the objection that we have heard was that you don't sell food. And to be able to authorize on-premise sales of beer, you have to have a certain percentage of food. Well, one, I would question whether that's a duly authorized ordinance, but setting that aside, our percentage of beer, again, we will make nothing below 5%, so our percentage is 0. So 0 is less than 25%. So I've tried to respond to that, in the letters, given our reason that there would be a concern with on-premise permitting. But I would also point to Tennessee Code 57.3.113. And Tennessee Code, so assuming that we're in this no man's land between 5% and 8%, that Jonesboro does not have a regulation. 57.5.113 provides for the sale of beer allowed any time authorized to sell liquor or wine. And I'll just read this for you since I don't, and it's short. It says, any establishment that is permitted to sell liquor or wine for on-premise consumption pursuant to Chapter 4 of this title, which Tennessee Hills is authorized pursuant to Chapter 4 to sell on-site liquor by the drink. That's what distilleries are authorized by statute to do, shall be allowed to sell beer at any time the establishment is legally authorized to sell liquor or wine. So that would mean for us that we could sell beer up until 11 p.m. because for our distilling license, we're required by law to close at 11, which is earlier than what a normal beer establishment would have to sell, provided that the establishment has lawfully obtained a beer permit from the appropriate jurisdiction. Now, the question is really, again, what's the appropriate jurisdiction? Because of the way that Jonesboro statutes are working. I would say Jonesboro can grant that, again, consistent with what was done for other places in town, or we're happy to rely on our state authorization as the appropriate jurisdiction, because the state has authorized us to brew and to be able to sell, to brew over 5% up to 8% beers. So I would say, look, even if you set aside some of the problems that I think exist within the Jonesboro City Ordinance, which the mayor mentioned probably needs to be updated, and we'd be happy to be part of a helpful process to do that. But 57.5.113 gives the authority for us to sell beer, because we also already are permitted and allowed to sell other spirits. And completely makes sense. I mean, from the perspective of the city and safety of the community, we would like to be able to sell something other than mixed drinks. Because, mixed drinks people tend to have an overconsumption of those, but if you have beer, people tend to drink slower and they tend to drink less. So we actually think that it's within the interest of the city to, consistent with 57.5.113, allow us to sell on-premise beer. So where would we get the beer? The beer would be solely Tennessee Hills beer, and it would be coming from Jonesboro until we can establish the production facility that we've asked for as part of the first request, and then the beer would be coming from the Jonesboro facility. we would not be selling any other beers other than Tennessee Hill beers. So again, if any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
We need to clear up one thing. I think you may have just been speaking generally, but you mentioned Rugged American Spirits owns Tennessee Hills Distillery. That they're not that. Who are the actual owners
The
of the
applicant,
LLC?
what's that?
Who are the actual owners of the LLC?
Which LLC? Both of them are LLCs.
Tennessee Hills Distillery.
Tennessee Hills Distillery is owned by Rugged American Spirits.
Okay, the application listed Stephen and Scott.
Well, and they are the owners of Rugged American Spirits.
Okay.
So the only people that you get to are
Stephen and Scott.
and Scott.
Good enough. Okay. Then just for the record, before we go into executive session, I wanted to note that the board was notified late this afternoon that the zoning issue should not be considered an issue today. So with respect to approval of the permit. So we're not disagreeing with you on that. You had a good point on that. The June 5th letter that was referenced to you does not only address zoning. There were several other issues that were brought up in that June 5th letter, and I just mentioned that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you could expound upon what that is with respect to manufacturing.
I'm
That's like-
hosting the board.
Yeah, okay.
And at this point, I would ask that you, if you have any questions for me, that we go to executive session to discuss those, because litigation has been threatened here, and that's obviously one of the criteria for going into executive session.
I think we do that, and if we come back out, if we have any questions, we can ask them at that point. Is that good?
So I would like to, since that was mentioned, I would ask that the June 5th, 2023 letter be entered into the administrative record.
Yeah. Do we have a copy of that letter?
We
I
can
do.
get one.
Okay. You say you got one?
Yes.
Okay. Greg, you mind handing that to me? All right, well,
I only have one of those, and you can have it. I've got electronic versions.
all right. We'll go back in executive session for a few minutes, and we'll be right back out as soon as we can.
you get by me? I'm sorry. Forgive me.
I guess he left this for me.
So, are we deferring action on the beer board?
We're in the beer board right now. Yeah, we never went
Oh,
back
so we're
to
not
the
gonna
beer.
go back to the other?
No, we won't have to.
So do we have to make a motion to do it?
Sorry. I don't either.
I'm confused.
Well, do you remember the planning commission meetings? When we were trying to, the parties were working out the drainage and with the box and yeah, I mean, that's kind of like,
Yeah, but
it was almost an hour that they were working on. It's the, is it the next? 26.
We'll finish this up here and some good discussion. Has anybody got a motion to move this along?
make a motion, we defer action till June 26th.
Okay. Got a motion to defer action till the 26th. Is that
Second.
What time is that meeting?
Pardon me?
What time is that meeting? You need to set that.
7?
Seven.
I mean, it'd be 2 weeks from tonight, right?
7.
Yep. 26, 7 o'clock? Okay. Any other discussion about that? Call for the vote.
Alderman Countermile.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. We'll be back on the 26th, 7 o'clock.
And Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that the staff will need to, even if there's been a notice already for that meeting, they'll need to do a notice for that as a called meeting for that purpose. So I would recommend you do it as a call meeting of both the beer board and the Board of Mayor and Alderman, again, in case you need any action.
Okay, duly noted. Do we need to adjourn the beer board here, or?
You do.
Okay.
I mean, we could do it earlier. Do you want to do 6?
Well, you've actually recessed till then, so that's all you need to do.
Okay.
Okay.
And if we get the application and the staff can get through it and we can get a date, we'll do it sooner.
If we can do it sooner than that, we'll look at that. Ideally, I think we do it sooner than that, so. If the 26th is not a good date for Chuck. So, okay.
And the only reason that date's sitting out there is because there was already a called meeting to happen on the budget that day.
We'll see if we can get it moving faster.
Okay.
All right. That's it. We need to adjourn.
We need to adjourn the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting.
We're going to call back the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. No other discussions there, so we will adjourn the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting.